Life was better when you were young. You're either kidding yourself if you say otherwise, or you've had some horrendous trauma, which I'm now very sorry for bringing up in a light-hearted video about a Nintendo game from 35 years ago. Tiredness, ennui, and anger, the three prevailing emotions of being an adult, were rarely encountered when there are more hairs on your head and far less fat squatting on the ledge of your belt. I'm not sure this necessarily applies to the Tiny Toons, as just like their adult counterparts on which they are based, they're not overtly concerned with serious injury or having to look after someone with Alzheimer's, or having to look for yellow stickered product in their local Tesco Express because they can't afford to feed themselves. It's perhaps why I spend so much of my time compiling videos about games on ancient systems, finding solace from the looming threat of ever-increasing water bills and general existentialist misery. This one, though, I missed out on, and it's so good that maybe I have to consider that maybe my childhood wasn't that good at all. Thanks Konami, thanks Babs and Buster Bunny. You've dropped your collective genes and shat on my comforting nostalgia duvet. To be fair, I probably should have looked and tried to play this, so that's on me. So let's discuss that there video game, but first the menagerie of goofy animated spawlings that feature heavily throughout. Tiny Toon Adventures was the first animated series produced by Warner Brothers Animation in association with Steven Spielberg's Amblin Entertainment, who they would go on to work with on such shows like Tasmania, Freakazoid and Animaniacs. The cartoon is set in Acme Acres, the home of both the Tiny Toons and their forebears, the Looney Tunes. The Looney Tunes characters act as teachers on how to be funny to their youthful counterparts, who all look, suspiciously like their educators. Should I be thinking of Golden Age cartoon characters illicitly fathering offsprings up and down Acme Acres like the last days of Sodom and Gomorrah? Probably not, but now so are you. Do I apologise? No. As well as featuring the comedic violence and slapstick of the classic Looney Tunes cartoons, Tiny Toons add all sorts of contemporary references which are significantly less contemporary 35 years later. Running for 98 episodes over a period of just a year and a half, incredibly, the show made a return to screens in 2023 with Tiny Toons Looniversity, which finds the characters in further education. Does that mean they were in school for 33 years? Crikey. Another alarming thing is the sheer amount of video games the Tiny Toons were in. That's an extraordinary amount. I could have covered any of these. There's so many different games in so many different genres. But though I thought, well, I'll play it safe with the very first console title, that being Tiny Toon Adventures on the Nintendo Entertainment System. Tiny Toon Adventures is a late-stage platformer for the system, programmed and distributed by Konami in 1991. So looking at the game, you can see it's a Tiny Toons game, but does it remind you of anything else? You see, there appears to be a fairly popular theory that it borrows very heavily from Super Mario Bros. 3, which, why not? That is indeed the perceived selection for most folk as the best NES game of all time, and there's an argument that almost every other platformer after that seminal title for a while showed an undeniable influence to Super Mario Bros. 3. However, it sure does borrow a lot. Suspicions are abound that it doesn't so much borrow as outright steal. Some folk think that the evidence is there that Super Mario Bros. 3 was reverse engineered by Konami and literal chunks of code were copied across into this game. It has a very similar up display and identical to the frame scrolling, jumping and running. The theatre setup is very similar to Super Mario Bros. 3 with the curtains and the ends level screen. They're the same, and even some minor mechanics like the gliding Tanuki suit and gliding duck animations that are very, very similar indeed. There is a hint of fish here, if not the honk of a trawler load. However, it does seem very unlikely to me that they were copying things across. Why would a huge third-party company like Konami risk copy-pasting code from one of the most popular games of the early 1990s? Not only that, but from one of the most litigious companies in the industry, that being Nintendo. It's not like they don't notice these sort of things. Not only that, but a court case of this nature would also turn the milk sour when it comes to Warner Brothers and the Tiny Toons license. I would file this under very unlikely tinfoil hattery, but interesting all the same. However, that is Sonic the Hedgehog. Sega grease up the lawyers and prepared to take Konami to Brown Town. Because it's an early 90s platform game, the storyline is basically a female has been kidnapped, as Montana Max has snatched away Babs Bunny. Rather than approaching Acme University's faculty to suggest to Monty that his future attendance at the school might be in jeopardy if he imprisons female students against their will, Buster instead decides to team up with Plucky, Dizzy Devil and Furball to attempt to rescue across 6 multi-stage levels. Borrowed, stolen or neither, if you're going to be compared to one of the system's greatest titles, it had better be for good reasons, and it absolutely does. Mario 3's control responsiveness has been replicated here, a smoothness honed by the finest of Miyamoto's crew. If you can get your platform game to play like Mario 3, you're 95% of the way to having a classic game. It's not a huge game, but it is challenging. The game is a bit free at handing out extra lives by means of collecting and trading objects with Hampton the Pig in his in-level exchange shop. However, the game is a bit sparing when it comes to restart points, and you can only take 1 or 2 if you collect the right power-up hits before kicking the bucket. It's a tough game, but it is fair. When you start a level, you'll be playing as Buster, but you'll also have to select a partner for that level, all of which control very similarly, but each have a unique ability. Buster can leap higher than the others because he's a rabbit, duh! Dizzy can spin like his predecessor Taz, which hurts enemies and breaks down blocks in your way. Plucky is a better swimmer, and he can hover like Princess Peach in Mario 2, and Furball can use his claws to cling to walls and slow his descent. Like Mega Man, there are definite advantages to picking a character on certain stages, but it's not impossible if you pick an incorrect partner for that level. You can't go swapping around willy-nilly from Buster to these characters at will, but instead you have to collect these balls with stars on, which appear generally once a stage. As well as the game's end-of-level bosses, there is also another mid-level boss in the shape of Elmira, the pet terrorising cuddler. The only way to avoid defeating these stages is to completely avoid the clinging little girl. If she makes contact with you, you have to restart the entire level again. You might also encounter this surprise boss when a Star Destroyer lands in Acme Acres, and you have to put an end to the nefariousness of Duck Vader, who will reward you with 3 bonus lives if you put him to the sword. Graphics are some of the best on the system, with gorgeous pastel-coloured interpretations of the animation's cast. The characters bound about with decent animation, and the music too is suitably peppy as well. It is a well-presented title. Overall, Tiny Toons is a terrific effort, all in all, and I'm just about forgive it for not being in my life as a child, much like the deadbeat dads masquerading as teachers in the lives of these Acme Acres dwelling characters. This game, an absolute barnstormer. I reckon you should give it a go. GamePro reviewed the game in December 1991. They gave it a 3 out of 5 and claimed the popularity of the Tiny Toons amongst the kids set alone is enough to ensure this game a place on somebody's Christmas wish list. Strip away that popularity, however, and you've still got a solid game with a decent challenge. N-Force, which always sounded like a blaxploitation movie to me, thought it was a right hoot in 1992. Tiny Toon Adventures is non-stop fun, they said. With extra characters to play and lots of superb animation, this is a must. More fluff than your granny's feather bed is what the NES is all about. Buy it a 93% from them. Total reviewed Tiny Toons in August and gave it an 88%, calling it cute, playable and funny. Right, that's it for 2025's games based on TV shows. Do join me in January for a bit of 80s quizzing. The Price is Right on the Commodore 64. Come on down! Is that what they used to say? Yeah. Like, subscribe. Okay, thanks, bye.